Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to our weekly roundup. I'm Peter from Mr. Money TV.
Hi everyone, I'm Frankie.
Now, I hope you guys have enjoyed the weekly roundup where we try to round up all these highlights of the week so that you guys get to know what's actually happening in Malaysia and all around the world. But in order for us to produce this, Frankie, there's someone special that we need to thank, right?
Yes, and this special person would be the Coffee Break newsletter.
The Coffee Break newsletter is actually a daily newsletter where they send to you a concise format of what's happening in Malaysia and all around the world. And all you need is just 3 minutes to finish reading what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, if you guys are keen on signing it up, go to the link in the description below and become a subscriber of Coffee Break. Frankie, how long have you been reading the Coffee Break?
I've been reading it for more than 9 months now. Yeah, and it saves time and it keeps me updated with all the important news of the day.
Yeah, in fact, it's the same for me. Every morning, that's actually the first thing that I'll receive in my mailbox and I'll be reading it. Now, without further wasting time, why not let's go into a few topics of today, right? Today is really interesting because over the past few weeks, quite a lot of things have happened. There is the QR fiasco, there is flood, there's the possibility of cabinet reshuffling as well.
Correct,
right?
correct.
And some other things. So let's dive down into the first topic of today, which is the question about QR.
Yeah.
Right? So just last week itself, there was this sudden announcement that says that this QR thing, merchants will be charged a fee. And it just trickled this whole panic, right? Because everyone was like, if they're going to charge a fee, it means that this cost is going to trickle down to consumer likely. So what are your thoughts about this?
Yes, correct. So you need to understand why Bank Negara wanted to do this in the first place, right? It was all about digitalizations of the economy. So in the past, we have been using cash to do all these transactions. Now, the disadvantage of using cash to do transaction is that, first of all, you cannot track those transactions, right? Because everything is manual. And number two is it actually incurs a lot of cost for Bank Negara to print money. The paper need money, the ink need money, it's very expensive. So if everything can be transferred into a digital format, then number one, you can track those transactions, and number two, it saves costs. So it's a fantastic idea. And this QR payment has already pulled off and everybody is using it on a daily basis.
That's right.
Today, you can even use it in pasar, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you can buy vegetable, you can buy meat and whatnot just by scanning the QR code.
Yeah, ever since this QR thing was implemented, I barely even carry cash in my pocket, right? Most of the time, we just QR to everything. Yeah.
Correct.
Now, I think it helps for the audience to understand a little bit of this whole structure of QR thing, right? So actually, this QR infrastructure was set up by this company called PayNet. And PayNet is actually not really like a company per se, right? But it's made up of multiple banks and it's actually owned by Bank Negara, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like a consortium. But in order to run this whole infrastructure, there's actually a lot of costs involved. Yeah. There's the payment gateway, there is the whole tech support system at the back, and so on and so forth. And someone has got to be paying for this cost. And so far, currently, who's paying for it?
At this point, I think all the people who are involved, the stakeholders, have to pay for it, because ultimately this is not something that is supposed to make money. It is more about giving convenience to the people and at the same time to digitalize the economy.
Yeah.
So that is the main objective. But of course, I totally understand that if you want to turn this into a business, it makes perfect sense. First, you give it to the people to use, and once they hook up to it, it's very hard for them to change their behavior, and then you start imposing a fee on that. So from business perspective, totally makes sense. But right now, I think the idea is bigger than that. We are talking about giving convenience to the people, and because this is part of the Bank Negara initiative to push for digitalization, I think they need to rethink whether it makes sense to charge people or not.
Yeah, so there's this whole question about whether it's this PayNet thing, right? I mean, you actually set up a company that's not gonna make money, So then the question is it gonna be a company that makes money, or is it gonna be a company that doesn't make money and is just for the good of the nation? Now, definitely for many people at the consumer level, we know that banks earn a lot of money already. The executive of bank also earn a lot of money. So then the question is that,
you already earn so much, why you still want to trickle down the cost to us? Can't you just do something good for the nation and not earn that little bit of fee?
Correct. So there are actually two ways to go about it, if you think about it. One is either the bank suck it up, right? Okay, they say that, okay, I've earned so much money from you already, I give a little back to the society, right? This one, I absorb the cost for you. Or if they really don't want to do that, then eventually it will trickle down to us. We will have to pay that fee, that transaction fee. So the question is, if you don't want to pay that fee, moving forward, then probably you need to carry more cash, right? Your wallet has to be bigger.
Yeah, then you go back to the cash days, right?
Correct.
But the truth is that we have already changed our habit. Then the chances are we're not going to do that. It means that we're going to use QR. And it also means that merchants are going to increase their price, right? So that's going to trickle down to higher cost of living. Now, the truth is, the merchants are not going to go by, if you pay by QR, I'm going to charge you more. If you pay cash, I'm going to charge you less.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it means that everything is just going to go up in price. So that is actually the question there that everyone is asking. So do you think that this PayNet thing should be a vehicle for national good? Or do you think that this PayNet thing should be a business? Because on a business perspective, you are supposed to be making money lah. You're not supposed to be losing money. So I also understand from that standpoint. But ultimately, the question is this. What is it supposed to be for? Is it really just for nation building and digitalizing of a nation? Or is it to make money? Now, we are definitely not the guys to make a good comment about this. Why don't you guys tell us in the comments below?
All right, let's move on to the next news. Now, Peter, do you notice these days when you drive to office, right, the vision is kind of blurry, and you're not sure whether your eye got problem and you need to go for a checkup?
Yes. It kind of almost feel like it's semi-gloomy-ish, but it's hot at the same time. It feels rather humid as well because of that.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's the time of the year again, the season of the year where the haze comes back. Right, this is thanks to all the forest burning and stuff like that, right? So all this peat burning right now is actually happening in Indonesia as usual. And apparently there are 466 hot spots now in Kalimantan and Sumatra alone. And it's causing haze with the monsoon season. All the haze is blown to the Malaysian side of
yes,
things.
that's very true. Now, I every time we go to this haze issue, right, where it's really seasonal, every year sure got one period is like that. Yeah, then we'll be blaming the Indonesian. And then Indonesia will be end up blaming Malaysian, right? Because they say that those oil palm plantation is actually owned by Malaysian company. And because of this whole haze issue as well and this whole burning, and it actually causes this whole image that palm oil is not very ESG friendly.
But this year, I think it's a little bit different from the past. It's because usually during haze season, right, is drought season, and because there's no rain and all that, the haze becomes more and more thick. It becomes thicker. But this time around, somehow every 1 or 2 days you get some rain here and there. So actually it's not too bad compared to the past.
But I personally don't really like it because it kind of makes the weather a little bit warmer or more humid.
Definitely.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, greenhouse effect.
I'm not sure whether is that really scientific for me, but yeah, it just really does feel that way right now. But talking about the issue of weather, right, I think instead of the haze issue that's every year, I think one thing that happens every year in Malaysia is also flood, right? And recently we have this whole issue about flood in Kedah itself. And I recall this whole incident about flood became more and more prominent ever since that big flood 1 year or 2 years ago, I can't remember.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years ago.
And there was this whole thing about talking about the effort to actually build up irrigation and so on so we can mitigate this whole flood thing. I wonder what's the update on that. Is there any things that's happening that really is helping out the flood situation? Because I still see this flood going on.
Correct. So, but all these things, it cannot change overnight because ultimately, if you want to deepen the longkang or you deepen the river, it takes time because river can be hundreds of kilometers, right? So, I think it takes time to improve. But for the time being, we still need to bear with the consequences of heavy rain and whatnot lah. So I think, unfortunately, this time around, Kedah is facing flood issue again.
Yeah, apparently the number of flood evacuees in Kedah has decreased from 1,383 people from 420 families as of 8 a.m. on Saturday, down from 1,550 people from 468 family on Friday, which means that day by day it is, improving the situation. So hopefully these people eventually can soon return home.
Correct.
But during this season also there's this whole big issue that came by as well, which has to do with the Menteri Besar Sanusi, right? Because during this period of time, many people actually said that, hey, you should be staying back to help out, right? But he was end up busy with the Pelangai by-election in Pahang. And that invited some comments from our Deputy Prime Minister Zahid.
Yeah, so he commented that, your state is having problem right now. A lot of people are suffering from flood. You should be staying back to help. But why you end up in Pelangai to campaign for the by-election, right? So now it triggered the issue of, is power more important, getting elected more important, or helping the people more important? Now, personally, this is how I think. If you don't have power, if you're not elected to be the representative of the people, it's also very hard for you to implement things to help the people. Yeah, so the question would be, power come first or you go and help people first?
Yeah. So we also do not have answer for this particular question. And for me, it's kind of like a paradox as well, right? Chicken and egg situation. So what do you guys think? Tell us in the comments below.
Okay, so speaking about power and our Deputy Prime Minister, I think recently he has been very active on the news, right? So the next news is also somehow related to him. You heard of this rumor where our Prime Minister is talking about a possible cabinet reshuffling?
Oh, yes, I recall that. And then there was this poster everywhere. They say that maybe YB Henayo will be swapped out and then the MIC President Saravanan will actually be appointed into the position and stuff like that, right? So a lot of people started pleading online. Don't change her lah, change other people who cannot do work lah and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then the thing is there really gonna be a cabinet reshuffling going on?
Right. So one of the big reasons why this issue became an issue is because there is actually one position to fill within the cabinet, which is the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living, because this seat was empty after the passing of Salahuddin Ayub. Yeah. So because of that empty seat, so they need to do some reshuffling over there. But because of that, then other politicians started to make their comments on who is not doing the job well, and then therefore this person should be replaced by another person and stuff like that. So just to give you an example, right, somebody from MCA has urged the Prime Minister to relinquish his finance ministry position because you are not supposed to hold two positions like our past prime ministers.
Yeah, so that's also been part of the topic that's been going on for quite a while, right? Are you a part-time finance minister and full-time PM, or are you a part-time in both sides, or are you part-time PM, full-time finance minister? So that has become kind of a joke sometimes as well. Now, also there's this whole question, right? I really keep wondering, that seat empty for that ministerial seat, why not just bring in another minister to fill it? Why not reshuffle the whole cabinet?
Maybe you want to take this opportunity to see who is not doing the job well, then you can change the fella away. That's one reason to do it, right?
That's true. Maybe this is what we should do, right? Those of you who are watching this right now, you should comment in the comments below, who do you think is a minister that's doing their job and who do you think is a minister that's not doing their job? But all these comments are solely your own, nothing to do with us.
Yeah, but Mike Chong, which is MCA's Youth Deputy Chief, he has some comments on this. So he thinks that our Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli, he is an underperformer in the cabinet, right? And he should be replaced. And he also thinks that the Agriculture and Food Security Minister Mat Sabu, he is also not doing his job very well because inflation, food crisis and whatnot. So he also thinks that Mat Sabu should be replaced.
Right, but why does he think that the Economic Minister is not doing well?
Well, apparently he said that Rafizi failed to improve people's life and his only suggestion was to ask people to cook at home instead of going out to eat.
I think number one, the whole issue about that cooking at home thing, it was taken out of context. But at the same time, he made a untimely comment. That's what I can say, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of improving people's life, there's already so many years that our life is supposed to improve, but it hasn't been improved as well.
Yeah.
Then whose fault is it, right? That's one big question. Number two, improving lives take time lah. It's not like something that happens just straight away tomorrow.
Yeah, just like the flood issue, right? It will not be solved within 1 or 2 nights.
That's right. And I don't think that he's doing a bad job, but it's a waiting to see, because at least they already start talking about progressive wage model. They start to talk about a lot of other things. I know that they're working with the EPF to come up with a lot of interesting things as well. Yeah, to actually improve the life and the economy of the people, right? Now, on the other hand, if we are to talk about Mat Sabu, do you think he's doing a good job or bad job? Well, I have to say that I have not heard a lot from him ever since, the unity government came about. Now, what are some things that we've been hearing about him?
Not too much as well, actually.
Yeah, quite quiet, right?
Yeah, but to be fair, all this food crisis and whatnot, it is not something that Mat Sabu alone can solve, because ultimately the whole world is experiencing the same problem.
That is very true. I was just thinking of myself, it's actually due to the rise of commodity prices and so on, right? So as a minister, what really can you do? Increase people pay? Then that doesn't come under his jurisdiction also. Yeah, okay, if he's gonna throw in more subsidy, you are supposed to reduce subsidy right now, not increase subsidy. So what are some initiatives can be done? Honestly, when I'm thinking from their perspective wise, I think it's really difficult being a minister.
Yeah, I really think that being a politician at this period of time is a really, really tough job, right? And just to think about it, in the next few days, the Prime Minister, or rather the Finance Minister, is going to table Budget 2024, and this is going to be the big event for the whole nation. because this is the time the finance minister will draft out how is he going to spend the government's revenue on the rakyat in the next 12 months.
Yeah. Talking about this, I already know what's going to happen.
Oh, what is going to happen?
It's going to be the biggest budget ever announced.
Because every year is the biggest budget announcement.
Yeah. I think the day that they say we reduce the budget, right, will be the day I have the shock of my life. I'll be honest. Yeah, but it's been going up and going up and going up. And I bet people are going to have a lot of questions about it.
Yeah.
No, so there are some points that we really want to take a look at before this budget even go out, right? That certain thoughts that I have. I foresee a few things that is going to be a highlight. Number one, when it comes to targeted subsidy. Yeah, this has been a topic that's been talking about ever since the early of year. Remember, there was a reduction of subsidy for household. Yeah, then we are talking about possibility of petrol.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how are they going to implement it? Because the key point here is this, right? Our national subsidy that's given out every year is actually in a lot of money, and they are saying that it is expected to exceed 81 billion ringgit this year. 81 billion ringgit just for subsidy. To give you a perspective on that, right? This is more than the development budget.
Correct.
This is more than development.
In fact, based on last year's budget, the entire budget for last year was only around 300 over billion, if I'm not mistaken. So 81 over 300 over is almost close to 1/3.
Crazy, right?
Yeah,
So
close to 1/3.
imagine in your business, right? Let's say today you're running a business. You are going to spend more money subsidizing your staff for lunch than using the money to build bigger revenue. So that is actually really something that amazes me as I get into business, as I understand a nation more and politics more, right? But nonetheless, we have already come to this point that we are here. So now in order to pull that back, it's really, really difficult, because now if you reduce subsidy by doing targeted subsidy, people are not going to be happy, right? But if you increase the subsidy and you maintain the subsidy, the country got not enough money. People are also not going to be happy. So this is also tough situation.
Correct. So the budget is always about how to save money and how to make more money. So just now, targeted subsidy is one way to save more money. But when we look at the revenue side of things, of course, then government will always try their way to find introduction of new taxes so that they can collect more money from the people, right? So one of the few initiatives that the government have and they're toying with the idea, number one is the e-invoice initiative. So in the past, people can issue manual invoices, just like how you use cash when you do transaction.
That's right.
Now, all these manual invoices, you can say at the end of the day, oh, I lost my invoice. So therefore, it is very hard for me to track. And therefore, because I cannot track, maybe there's a chance that I don't need to pay that amount of taxes to the government. Now, with the implementation of e-invoices, everything is recorded online. So it's very hard to evade tax in that way.
Yeah. So
that would
suppose with that, you can collect more tax, right? And you're collect from a rightful source because people actually avoided it and you get back.
So that's one way to close the loophole, right? And the other one is that the government is thinking about implementing capital gain tax on non-listed shares, non-listed equities.
That is one of those things that's definitely going to be the highlight for this coming budget.
Correct. So stay tuned on Friday if you're interested to find out what are the new stuff that the government wants to implement. Friday, the 13th of October, I think from 3 to 4 p.m. onwards, the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister will be tabling in front of the whole nation.
Talking about it, if we are looking at this capital gain tax, what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's right that the government collect capital gain tax? And do you think that this will end up transferring the cost to the public?
I think it is a very good first step to test water. Because when you tax capital gains on unlisted shares, number one, to begin with, usually is the high net worth individual or very big financial institutions. They get access to all this private equity industry. And because of that, because they are big whales in nature, so by taxing them a little bit, it shouldn't be a lot of problem because they have the capability to pay. Now, once government get used to it and people get used to the idea of when you make money, you need to pay some capital gain tax, then slowly you expand your horizon into other kinds of capital gain tax. Right, so today we already have property gain tax. So now they're going to implement private equity gain tax. Maybe the next step is really going towards other forms of capital gain tax.
But there's also this question, right, about like, let's say you are a small little startup, right? You don't have much money, but you finally got your first round where you get to exit. So you manage to sell some shares to someone, right? And it's not like you're rich, you know. Then you get taxed some more. I mean, the third, fourth round when the VC come in, those I can understand that. But at the smaller level, it doesn't feel good, you know. And it kind of like takes away the ability for you to make money and exit well. But on the hindsight, looking at it from the other perspective, right, is the idea that it's also good because then startups, when they are selling their company, they won't be just selling it and then walk off.
Yeah, for the sake of exit.
Yeah,
correct.
But rather, they will make sure that this money is retained in the company and build revenue, and then from there, they can exit with profits rather than the sale of stocks. So that will also reduce the inflated valuation in the market.
Correct.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
So that's good. That's bad lah. Nonetheless, one thing that he did say is this, right? For our economy minister, Rafizi Ramli, he said that by rolling out targeted subsidies in Q2 of 2024, the government would save at least 4.7 to 8.4 billion every year.
Wow, that's 10% saving from the 81 billion that we spend every year.
So, and this is just by moving it from a blanket subsidy to a targeted one. And then how are they going to implement? We don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of question about like whether is it going to be an e-government system lah, identify you by IC lah or whatnot. Some say it will work, some say it wouldn't work. So the goal is very simple. They want to shrink the deficit to 3.5% of GDP, and then they will leverage on this saving and use it to repay the debt of the nation.
So if this plan really go accordingly, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, Malaysia can really save up some money and maybe possibly show some surplus in our government budget. Because if you think about it, right, if I'm not mistaken, since 1997 financial crisis until today, we have been living on government deficit for a very long time. So if this can really work out, there's a chance for Malaysia to turn surplus in the near future.
Oh, but there's also this question, right? People say that surplus actually means that your nation is not productive enough. For me, actually, a more important thing is that will this saving translate into development? Yeah, that's something that I'm much more interested in. What I hope to see is actually the government be able to increase the development budget rather than just spending it buta on like expenses kind of stuff and subsidy and things that doesn't produce things lah.
Correct. So today the government has to borrow money for development. So hopefully going forward, if we have a surplus in our budget, then we don't need to borrow that much money for our development in the country.
Anyway, what do you guys think and what do you hope to see in this coming budget? Do tell us in the comments below. Anyway, we have reached to the end of this week's weekly roundup. If you enjoy this show, please give us a thumbs up down in the comment below. So thank you very much. See you next week.
See you. Bye-bye.